Hey guys, happy Chinese New Year. Until recently, I didn't know there were so many Americans on the internet just idolizing China, like some sports fans. And I'm sure those Kung Fu robots last night converted even more of you. I'm impressed too, honestly. As long as they're not used as riot police, I'll remain impressed. But I'll say this again. Even if you admire certain achievements out of China, it doesn't follow that you want to copy its political system. I'm not going to debate the pros and cons of the Chinese political system today. That'd be a huge can of worms that I can't deal with right now. What I want to warn you is that China doesn't really have a settled political system at all, which means if you want to copy it, you won't know where to start. If we define a political system based on the repeated process in which political leaders are selected, I can tell you that such a repeated process doesn't exist in China. Every top leader China has had since the Communist Revolution assumed power through a different mechanism. Every single one of them took a unique path. It's impossible to say which transition signifies the Chinese system. Look at this nice diagram I made. The first one, Mao, of course, won power militarily. That was certainly unique. The second one, Mr. Hua, was chosen by Mao in his deathbed. So he was like, if you handle things, I'll be at ease. That's it. That's how Hua became the top guy. But as I told you before, in order to secure his position, he immediately put Mao's wife and nephew in jail after he died. Pretty dramatic. So unlike his predecessor, Hua ruled only a few years and started to lose power gradually due to his failure to break from Mao's radical policy. The power transition was different this time because there was no longer a dominant figure. So Hua's titles were divided up by different individuals. The party leadership was taken by Mr. Hu, and the military leadership was taken by Mr. Deng. The presidency, the premiership, all taken by different people. It became a collective leadership. Mr. Hu had the highest official ranking, but Deng had more de facto power due to his authority in the military. But this third administration was terminated before the term even ended because of the internal disagreement between the top leaders. Deng accused Hu of capitalist liberalization, whatever it means, and then used his informal power to force Hu to resign. That's certainly different from all the previous transitions. Then the person who replaced him was Mr. Zhao, who ranked number 4 in the party, but suddenly became the new general party secretary out of the blue. People just woke up and suddenly realized that the general party secretary was a different person. Not even a big party ritual or something, just boom. But then Mr. Zhao only served 2.5 years when Tiananmen happened. So he didn't agree with Deng's deployment of the military in the streets, and he got fired a few weeks after he had a friendly visit with the student protesters. Not only he was fired, but he was put in house arrest for the rest of his life. Okay, that guy was confined in his own house for 16 years. That deserves some respect, right? His replacement, Mr. Jiang, was not even in the central government at the time. He was the municipal party secretary of Shanghai. And after Tiananmen, he was sort of summoned to Beijing as an emergency replacement. Back then, every remaining top leader in Beijing was highly unpopular due to the mass killing. So they crowned a new guy out of Shanghai. So again, that was another very abnormal transition. Also, Mr. Deng's health started deteriorating, so he quit the military title and let Jiang take both positions. So the CCP went back to a unitary leadership like before. Okay, fast forward to 2002. So Jiang was the first Chinese leader ever to retire normally after his second full term ended. Of course, he wanted to stay a little longer, but Deng had already set up the term limit before he died. I guess Deng didn't want his main legacy to be the pew-pew. So he set up this nice term limit to prevent future leaders from becoming overly powerful. So you see, the 2002 transition was the least dramatic one in modern Chinese history, but it was still pretty dramatic. Basically, an incumbent dictator had to bow to the will of a dead predecessor and surrender his power to someone his predecessor had handpicked for him. So that was also a totally unique way of power succession. Now, the last transition happened in 2012, which gave us the current leader, Mr. Xi. And guess what? That transition was again different from all the previous ones. So how was Xi chosen as the successor? Nobody knows, not a soul. The previous leaders more or less got the blessing from Mao or Deng or some other founding fathers before they ascended. But in the early 2000s, all the revolutionary founding fathers were dead. No one had the authority to just handpick a general party secretary. So how did he become the heir apparent? Nobody knows. And because he lacked a heavyweight endorsement, there was some conspiracy to derail the transition and install someone else. So Xi had to take off the gloves and jail half of the top leaders from the previous administration to secure the transition. Totally unprecedented. Okay, so here's a little summary. So firstly, Mao assumed power through revolution and left office due to death. And then Hua assumed power through Mao's will and left office due to being dismissed by the Central Committee. And then Hu assumed power through the Central Committee and left office because he was forced to resign by the military leader. And next one, Mr. Zhao, he assumed power through an emergency replacement, but then he left office when he was house arrested for life. And next leader, Jiang, was also an emergency replacement, but he skipped the grade all the way from the local government. And he left office due to the term limit. And then another Mr. Hu, he assumed power through highly expected transition. It was arranged 5 years in advance when Deng was still alive. And he also left office due to the term limit. And finally, Mr. Xi. He assumed power through a highly uncertain process of power struggle and mass purge. And he's very unlikely to leave office anytime soon because he got rid of the term limit. So the bottom line is that there's no such thing as a political system in China. Do you see a system anywhere? I don't. It's an accumulation of path-dependent stories, tales, and gossips. There's no written rule that you can just copy and paste into another country. Whether this non-system is good or bad, that's a different issue. I'm not going to talk about it today. But whether it's good or bad, it's not replicable. Okay, you can love this behind the door Game of Thrones to your heart's content, but you will not be able to copy it because there's no pattern for you to copy. Okay, people try to find a pattern, trust me. There are so many Chinese politics scholars in the US and they wrote books after books trying to make sense of this system. But they all ended up just telling stories. You think you can do better? If you want to advocate for a political reform, you need to find a country whose system you are able to describe and analyze. Not this one.